And welcome to another edition of Odyssey House Journals. I'm Trip Mitchell, and that is Randall Carlisle.
I took a shower today, just so that the studio would be a little more fragrant.
You are a wonderful individual,
See?
and that is pretty darn impressive.
My mother taught me to take a weekly shower, and I did it today because we're going to do this show.
For those of you who have meetings with Randall on Monday or Tuesdays of each week, see if you can put it off till Wednesday afternoon.
Because that's my shower. Yes.
That's the
Wednesday
day we
morning.
Take.
Yeah.
And the reason that you're watching this show is that you don't have anything else better to watch. But we will alert you.
No, it's because this is important because we're talking about addiction and recovery, and it's one of the biggest social issues across the country and the world today. That's why. So don't put this show down.
Okay, I won't.
Okay.
And
now you've been scolded.
I have been reprimanded by the head newscaster. And what this show is about is, as Randall just said, addiction recovery. Both Randall and I are in a group called AA, which you've heard of. And part of being in the club is the best way to keep it is to give it away. And so in many people, it's called service work in AA. And it sounds, don't let that scare you away. AA is a group of people who are trying to help, and there's not a dime that's ever spent. It's
right.
An amazingly free program with a lot of people who are going to try to help.
And it's all over the world.
It sure is.
When I go down to Mexico, they have English-speaking AA meetings in little towns.
And as a matter of fact, it's funny you should mention that. I was visiting Auschwitz 2 years ago, and actually had an AA friend of mine, Jeff, show up, and we had a meeting in Krakow, Poland before going. Sure. And he was concerned about, when you're going to one of the most evil places in the history of the world, you want to have just that little boost, but there are programs everywhere.
Yeah.
And we're not saying that AA in any way, shape, or form is an answer, but it's part of the answer. And Randall now, while working at Channel 4, had an opportunity to leave broadcasting to go to Odyssey House.
Right.
And the people at Channel 4 were very nice to let you out of their contract.
They were nice to let me out, and Odyssey was nice to hire me. So the world is good.
I've had many broadcast people want to let me out of contracts, and I didn't even ask.
Yeah.
So that happens.
It was great.
But part of what we're doing is giving out information. There's a phone number at the bottom of your screen, 801-322-3222.
My, I'm impressed.
Show number 32, I finally remember the phone number, and it's because there's a 3 and a 2 in there.
Yeah, there you go.
And once we get to show 33, I'll never remember it again.
Yeah, you'll mess it up.
Yeah, and that's the number at Odyssey House. And what we talk about is if you've got addiction in your family, or if it's you and you're feeling bad, give someone a call. Get out there and kind of spread your challenge to other people.
Sure.
There's so many people there to help. And alcohol or drugs might seem like the answer, but when you wake up sober or straight, it's not the answer.
I'll take sobriety over it all. And that's why I've got to introduce. I love this woman, okay? And I don't mean it in an indecent way. I've gotten to know Destiny Garcia over a pretty long period of time now. And she is. Did you ask her for her autograph yet?
I did not.
Did you know that?
We have a guest coming in for our next show, and we're just telling her to come on in and sit down.
You should ask her for her autograph because she is a superstar of recovery. And she's featured in a documentary film that is being put together right now that might be in Sundance this year.
Wow.
She's been to Washington, D.C. She's just, she speaks everywhere. What else? You've been on every TV station. You've been on
every newspaper.
Every newspaper. So welcome.
Destiny.
So I don't have a pen right here, but can we get your autograph when you're done? And she's just a wonderful person. So that's
thank you for being here and classing up this show, because normally, Randall likes to sit next to me and talk about all his challenges, and so Destiny, it's wonderful.
Talk about yours, and you have an incredible story of both addiction and recovery.
Right.
Can you? Okay, in 20 seconds,
don't do that to me, because I can try to do that. I've been told that before. In 30 seconds or less, can you tell us your story? I'm like,
Yeah.
So I was a single mom of 2. I was working full time. My kids were in sports. I had my own place, my own car, and I met a guy. 6 or 7 months into that relationship, he moved in with me. And about a year into that, it got really abusive. So this is where my opiate addiction started. I started getting injuries like fractured eye sockets, broken noses. I had my teeth go through my lip. I still have a fractured skull you can see on the side, and above my lip you can see where my teeth had went through, and I had to get it redone. So I started taking these trips to urgent cares, doctor's offices to get pain pills because I had injuries that required pain pills. The first time I went to the doctor, I walked out of there with 190 Percocet 15s, 90 Somas.
190?
Yeah, it gets better. 90 Klonopins, and I think 60 muscle relaxers on my very first trip.
And this is nothing you asked for.
I went there because I had a broken nose and I had to
Right.
readjust my nose, and my teeth had gone through my lip, and I think I was bumped with the car that time as well. The abuse was so much.
I hope this man ended up doing time in jail.
No. No, so that started my pain pill addiction. He was also taking pain pills for work stuff. I was with him for 7.5 years. So throughout this 7.5 year process, I'm in and out of the emergency room, taking pain pills, trying to leave, going back, trying to leave, going back. And I finally left. It got really severe. I finally left. I remember the day that I left, my son was in junior high school, my daughter was in elementary school. And we went to go get my stuff out of this house. And all the doors were locked. And I remember my son, he's in 7th grade, and he said, "Mom, don't worry. I knew this was going to happen. My window's always open." So my son, I was planning an escape before I even wanted to escape, or before I was even ready to escape. So he went through his window, we unlocked the door, and we filled up my mom's car with everything that we could, and we left. So when I left that relationship, I left my home, I left the money, I left everything behind, just whatever we can fit in my mom's car. But I had a huge addiction to pain pills. So I was given this opportunity to try to change my life. I moved in with my mom. I registered for college for criminal justice, youth services, and social work. I started going to college, but I was so addicted to pain pills, I started to use meth to keep me awake during classes. I was in classes where there was a police chief who was teaching the class as I'm going to the bathroom to smoke meth and stay awake at the same time at college. Needless to say, those addictions overtook everything, and I started to shoplift to afford those addictions. My last class in college, which was a computer class, it was the last class I had to finish. I ended up in jail and didn't finish that class. So it was only like a 9-month course. So 8 of those 9 months, I was on the dean's list every single month.
Wow.
I did great in school, but I had dual addictions. I was addicted to opiates and to meth at this time. So and that was over Christmas. I was going to shoplift to get my kids Christmas. I was in jail over Christmas, over New Year's. I got out of jail, and the first thing I did was go get high before I even went home. At this point, my kids wanted nothing to do with me. So my mom filed for custody of my son. And I could go there off and on, but the minute I went there and said, I'm shooting up meth and I'm taking pain pills, I need help, it was more like, we need to protect your child. So I was told to leave my mom's house. My daughter's dad filed custody of her, and I went to the streets of Salt Lake City. Out there is where I met somebody who did heroin. That's all it took. I was out there for 5 years, shooting up heroin and meth every 2 hours. So to support that addiction, I was shoplifting daily, like going to the malls, going to the store, shoplifting whatever I can get my hands on, and I would take it down to North Temple and I would sell it for dope. I quit trying to go to the doctors because the doctors weren't going to take the shoes on my feet if I needed to trade the shoes on my feet, where the dealers will take anything. And most times they give you an extra balloon to secure that you're going to come back.
Wow.
I was a hot commodity down there on North Temple because I had all this merchandise. I'd go to the malls and I would steal everything I could find name brand. So I blew out every vein I had and throughout my entire body through that 5 years.
And it all ended with Operation Rio Grande.
So throughout that 5 years, I was getting traffic tickets. After traffic ticket, I would get shoplifting tickets. But every time I would get a ticket, they would just cite me and let me go because it was like a shoplifting ticket. Or I would have a no insurance ticket.
Were you getting caught a lot?
I got caught 5 or 6 times. There's times I would go to jail and they would let me out like the very next day because my charges were misdemeanors. Most of my charges were traffic tickets. So on August 21st of 2017, I was down at Matson Park sleeping off in North Temple. I was dope sick sleeping. And that's when they had just started the Operation Rio Grande. So I was arrested that day. And when I was arrested on 13 traffic tickets and a Class B misdemeanor. And I remember as they were running my name, the cop was like giggling, saying, "You have so many traffic tickets. Like, you don't even go to court for a traffic ticket?" And I remember them. It was a male and a female officer. And I remember the female telling me as I'm sitting on the curb. And I'm sitting on the curb and I'm feeling just relieved. Like, now I can go into jail and sleep and eat and get back out tomorrow is what I thought in my head, because I don't ever spend very much time in jail. They said, because of this sweep we're doing, there's a lot of funding for treatment. So if you want some help, now's the time to get some help. So this was the first time that I'd gone to jail, and I wasn't asking my family to bail me out. I wasn't trying to get out. I was completely content with being in jail because I wanted treatment. I knew I needed help. I mean, I was sitting in the park for years, shooting up, crying because I didn't want to shoot up.
How about during the winter?
During the winter, it was the same thing. I'd walk around, go to the malls. I would go to my dad's house late at night. I'd get up early in the morning and go back out. So, and there's times I sit out all night long walking around. Because I wouldn't sleep most of the time at nighttime because I didn't dare to sleep at nighttime. I would walk around all night for days, and then I would go to my dad's and sleep a day or two and then go back out.
God, what a story.
So you're busted and you're offered treatment.
I'm offered treatment. So when I get into jail, I start writing kites, asking for treatments. I was the first group of people they pulled from the operation. They gave me an assessment in jail, and they said, "Okay, do you have an address? If you have an address, we'll get you out into an outpatient program. You can still get funded." I could have used my dad's address. I could have used my sister's address. I had addresses to use. But I know me, and I knew that if I would have got out of jail and I would have given them the address, I would have ran. Because that's what I do. That's what I've always done. I mean, I got arrested on 13 traffic tickets. That tells you the extent of me running.
Yeah.
I don't even go to court on a speeding ticket or a parking ticket. So I said, "No, I'm homeless. I don't have an address." So they said, "Okay, well, you're going to go into Odyssey House."
That was the best thing that ever happened.
That changed my life. Yeah. It was the best thing that ever happened. And I remember like being assessed, and I remember crying because I was so happy that I was going to go into a program. I was so happy because I didn't know how to get treatment. I didn't know where to look for funding. I had no idea. All I'd come accustomed to was getting high and stealing. Getting high and stealing. That's it.
Wow. What a life.
And in our last show, we met an amazing young lady, and we talked a little bit about crime. The people that are in jail, well over 50% are their drug and alcohol. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the crime is because of just trying to get that high. So much. If we could, instead of throwing money into incarceration, throw money into treatment and helping people out, we could go from being the most incarceration happy country in the world.
Well, see, she was savvy because the state got a waiver called Targeted Adult Medicaid, TAM, and it was for Operation Rio Grande, and it was for homeless people. So if she would have given an address, she wouldn't have had the same funding or the same access as saying, "I'm homeless."
Right.
So it worked to your advantage.
Yeah. There's also this huge population of people in which I fit in where I don't have a felony and I don't have a drug charge. Even though all my crimes that I were committing, which was shoplifting, was to get high, if you don't have a felony or you don't have a possession charge, you're more most likely just to get released from jail instead of going into a drug court program because you don't have a drug court, you don't have a drug crime. So that was my situation. So
by saying you were homeless, you got a chance to go to Odyssey House.
And because of the Operation Rio Grande.
So you were probably the one person who walked in Odyssey House going, "This is a piece of cake," or not?
No, I was probably one of the people in Odyssey House that was very focused, and it was hard. It was hard to take all these years of trauma and abuse and not feeling worthy and work on yourself. That's hard. It's so hard. But when I got to Odyssey House, they said, "Well, we can give you the option for Vivitrol. We can give you the option for methadone. We can give you those options. If it's going to keep you from running and going out there and use, we'll put you on methadone." And at first I said yes. We went to the methadone clinic and they were closed. It gave me 24 hours to think in my head, do I want to get on methadone? And at the end of that 24 hours, when they reopened, I said I didn't want methadone. I got on Vivitrol instead, which was, I was afraid to take any type of taste of any type of opiate or the feeling of being on any type of opiate. I was scared shit. Can I say shit?
You just did.
Lee will edit that out.
I think you can say that.
I mean,
You notice Lee writing down right now.
You're on primetime TV now, so it's not.
Well, we're on Comcast. We're on a higher level.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
But-
so I was scared to take
for-
any opiate at all.
For those of you who don't know, Vivitrol, there's something called MAT, medication-assisted treatment, and that includes Vivitrol, Suboxone, and methadone.
Mm-hmm.
And Suboxone and methadone are both opiates, and you're sort of hooked, but it keeps you from being dope sick, and it also doesn't. You're not well with methadone. Yeah, I guess you do get a little high, but it's better than being on the street and doing heroin. But Vivitrol is not an opiate, and it blocks the receptors in your brain if you do an opiate or if you drink. So, and it's not addictive. It's not habit forming at all, and so it's a smart way to go. I mean, you picked the
You
smart way
made
to
the right
go.
choice.
I was ready to get help, and I knew I needed help, and I wanted help at that time. So I got to Odyssey House, and I remember like the second day in there, one of the people pulled me aside, one of the staff members, and said, "Can you please call your family? They are calling every treatment center trying to find you. You were released from jail, but nobody told them where you went."
Wow.
So I called my mom, and I called my son. My son was 17. No, he was 18. He was 18 at this time, and he said, "Finally, Mom, I'm so proud of you." That's all it took for me, and I stayed. I decided to stay focused. I didn't get involved in any of the drama there. I didn't get involved in any cliques. I never got in trouble. There was nothing more important than my life at that point. So I went through Odyssey House in 4 months. So when I transferred out of Odyssey House, I was the first one to complete the inpatient program for Odyssey House for the Operation Rio Grande sweep. That I used the Salt Lake County's first Sober Living pilot program voucher, which prompted a press release in my front room at Sober Living with then Mayor McAdams, all the elected officials, all the newspapers, all the news channels.
There's a front page picture of Ben with his arm around her and them hugging each other. Yeah.
A little secret, 20 minutes before then I had no idea who Ben was and who the mayor was. I was in this addiction for so many years. They're like, the mayor? I'm like, who is the mayor? Yeah. Who is she? Is what
Well,
I thought.
and right now, when you said you work for the mayor and your office is on 21st and State, I remember that there is a mayor for Salt Lake County as well as Salt Lake City.
So I mean, I had no idea who it was,
But Operation Rio Grande was such an amazing program, and Greg Hughes. There were a lot of people responsible.
He was there.
Yeah, and what it did was amazing, and it hasn't cured all the problems, but at least we're realistic enough to know that you've got to throw some money and resources at a problem, and you're living proof.
And most of the people I talk to today that are in my recovery group, that are in my circle, are from Operation Rio Grande. Yeah. A lot of them are
doing really well, too.
Yeah, doing really well. So that prompted a press release in my house.
Ben hugging her, even though he didn't.
Where I told the media I was out there shooting up heroin and meth.
You know, and by the way, after hugging you, he is now in Washington, D.C., so it's been very good for his career.
Oh, I know, because I've been out there with him.
Yeah,
I'll get there.
She hasn't finished her story.
Ben and I are really good friends, and he comes out and supports my son and my family. We are friends at this point. So after that press release, I go to Odyssey Outpatient, and I'm looking for jobs, and I get a job, they run my background, they let me go, because I have theft charges. And I go to the city of the county, or the county address. What is it called?
What, the city county building or the
where
county
he
building?
does the county address, and he talks about all these things. I should know this. I work at the mayor's office.
Yeah, you do.
Anyways, he invited me.
The state of the county.
Yeah, there you go.
The state of the county. Yeah. Okay.
The state of the county address, where he invited me and my son and my family, and I was recognized about the Operation Rio Grande. I went with him to advocate for some programs when the Trump administration was here, and it was at that meeting that he pulled me aside and said, "Look, we have an opening in the mayor's office. Would you come in and apply?" In my head, I'm thinking, "Oh no, I can't work in the mayor's office. Like I can't do that. I'm a drug addict. I can't do that." So I went and applied, I went and interviewed, and he put me through 4 or 5 different interviews. I had to take a computer test, see if I can send an email. And all these things are things I've done before because I had a good work history before my addiction.
Sure.
And then he offered me the position. He made me go through all those interviews, all these tests, knowing that he was going to give me the position anyways.
And what is your title there?
Right now, I'm the Constituent Affairs and the Volunteer Services Coordinator for the county.
That's fantastic.
She is the first person you see when you walk into the county mayor's office. Is a big complex, and when you walk in through the front door, she's the first one to greet you.
Yeah. I'm the last one you see when you leave, too. And when you call, I'm the one you hear.
Well, and you are less than 4.5 minutes from here.
Yes.
Our studio. We moved here just so we could be close to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But it is a situation when great people fall into drugs or alcohol.
Yeah.
There's the underlying greatness of an individual is still there.
Yeah.
And so many times.
It takes some time to pull that out.
And there are many people out there in the community who will hire someone who's been through recovery. And, it's not a panacea for everyone involved. People, we have challenges.
Mm-hmm.
People are late for work. People have those things. But in this case, at the time, Mayor Ben McAdams took a chance on you, and it's worked out great.
I did. I was still an outpatient. I was still at Sober Living. So I was working 8 to 5 and then walking, luckily, just right across the street to Odyssey outpatient.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy how it all worked out for me, and going to outpatient treatment until 11 p.m. and then finding out I was pregnant. So I found out I was 15 weeks pregnant at that time, and I felt like oh my God, what am I going to do now? So I stayed on with the mayor's office. I completed Odyssey House. I graduated in August, then I graduated drug court in October, and I had my baby a week later.
Wow.
So luckily I was at the mayor's office, and they decided to cover me at 100% of my wages for 12 weeks of maternity leave. So I'm sitting at home with a new baby. Well, let me back step a little bit. So I'm in the hospital getting ready to give birth to this baby, and I have a strict no opiate plan. Because now I've graduated treatment, I've graduated drug court, and I have no accountability at all, and I was afraid, I was scared to take an opiate at any point, So I have my baby, I get my tubes tied, and the nurse comes in and is like, oh, you have a prescription for Lortab. And I'm like, no, I don't want that. So the next nurse, that nurse leaves, the next nurse comes on and is like, oh, here's your script for Lortab. I'm like, no, I don't want that. I finally had to get angry with the hospital and say, look, I have a very strict no opiate plan. I mean, the documentary crew was there with me the documentary crew's following me for this documentary about the opioid crisis and people overcoming it and being successful and getting out there. And it's a real positive film. But they're there filming me giving birth, knowing I'm an ex-heroin addict, and they're still trying to give me all these opiates. So needless to say, I went through that with not one opiate at all. I took ibuprofen. It's
Would you
doable.
recommend that for people?
I would recommend that for people. I would. Ibuprofen works wonders. It works wonders. Yeah. It works wonders. It was hard. I mean, when they're like, here's your Lortab, there goes my brain. Even though I've been in recovery and graduated all these programs, here goes that brain thinking, oh, here's your chance to take that little taste. But I knew I couldn't take that taste. So I went with ibuprofen only.
That's amazing. And so you literally have a documentary that's in post-production now?
It just finished its last filming. They were out here for the town hall that I was in on September 5th with Mayor Jenny Wilson, District Attorney Sim Gill, Admiral Winnefeld was there, Department of Utah Substance Abuse and Mental Health was there, Sheriff Rosa Rivera was there. Like, here I am sitting with all these people, and there were people I was running from for all these years.
Yeah, exactly.
Now she's a beloved member of the community.
Yeah.
And your story is one that lets people know that, first of all, there's help out there for the lowest of the low. Living on the street for 5 years, shoplifting, doing whatever it would take to stay high.
Yeah.
And yet now you're working, you're helping people, and you're making a big difference.
Yeah. But never in a million years did I think 2.5 years ago that I was going to be sitting where I am today. I thought I would graduate treatment and who knows where I'd be. I never in a million years thought I'd be sitting in the Salt Lake County Mayor's office and being such a huge advocate for recovery. So what I would tell somebody is just take the next best step, because you never know what's going to happen. I had no idea how this was going to happen to me, or that I would embrace it and run with it either.
And there's another expression: when you're digging yourself into a hole, stop digging.
Yeah, stop digging.
And
it shows how resources can make a difference to a person. I mean, resources and personal caring. Mm-hmm. I mean, if it wasn't for Operation Rio Grande, who knows where you'd be, or the funding that came along with that. If it wasn't for Odyssey House, if it wasn't for Ben McAdams taking you under his wing.
The sober living step, all of it.
I mean, it was a perfect storm for recovery for her, but there a lot of people don't get that perfect storm, and that's why you need more programs and resources and more people taking an interest in people like Destiny.
And I still struggle. I mean, after I've done all this greatness and I've recovered so good, and I've done all this great things, and I still have a 17-year-old daughter that won't talk to me. So I still have that pain. I still have that struggle. I've been clean for over 2 years now, and she still will not speak one word to me. I mean, and she's entitled to feel it any way that she feels because I caused that pain. But my story isn't just all good. Like, I struggle still every day. I have a 10-month-old baby at home. My son now
lives... A doll, by the way.
Of course.
She's gorgeous.
My son lives with me, but there's still those days that
it's
I
not
don't
a
want
magic...
to get up. There's still those days that I still struggle. There's still those emotions that I'm still learning how to deal with.
Sure.
And the hardest thing for you is the daughter issue, right?
Yeah. That is probably the hardest thing for me.
And she just doesn't want to have anything to do with you?
No. I mean, rightfully so. It took me years to ruin that relationship. I chose drugs over everything and everybody in my life for years. She has a different perspective, I think, than what my son has. My son was with my mom, and he was there seeing everything. He was there, and he
knew the challenges.
He knew the challenges. He's seen me overcome it. He was there from day one. My daughter was with her dad over here, and my son's over here with all of us. So she was a little protected, I think, by it, but she also, I mean, she's entitled to feel any way that she's feeling. I mean, that's the bottom line. She is entitled to feel whatever she feels, and that's how she feels right now.
Yeah. Well, Destiny, thank you so much for coming on the show. You're an amazing guest.
Thank you.
And Randall's track record for picking guests is 100%.
Yeah.
That you don't get much better.
Well, no, you don't. And she's just I've fallen in love with her, and we've been in a reasonable way. Yeah, I say that because she's just a wonderful person, and she's a good friend, and she just impressed me so much with the whole story, and I've sort of been with her and done several media events with her and everything, and she's blossomed into this wonderful.
All these recovery events too.
Yeah,
we do a lot of recovery events.
Ton of recovery events, and she's at every single recovery event.
I try to be, because that helps me stay humble and it helps me stay sober, and I need to be connected.
Sure, and the one thing they say in AA, you've got to give it away to be able to keep it, and it sounds like you're doing a great job of giving. So if you've watched and been inspired by Destiny's story, and I would imagine that it would be pretty difficult not to be, we've got a number to call, which is Odyssey House, which is 801-322-3222.
Boy, you do that well now. There's no need for me to be here anymore. Then
I've
I
got
won't
a
have
cue
to take
card
a shower
over
on Wednesday morning. I just won't come.
And give a call, talk to someone. There's so many resources out there. We've just, in Destiny's story, heard about some examples, and there are people out there to help. And take advantage of that if you've got a loved one or yourself. The life outside drugs and alcohol is so much better.
Look at what can happen.
It is.
Really.
Yeah.
It can happen, and I think Randall and I,
sure,
our story is not nearly as inspiring as yours, but every story is important.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.